Thank you very much, Madam Speaker, honorable senators. I rise today as a defender of Bill S-252, an act to establish Jury Duty Appreciation Week, introduced by the Honorable Lucie Moncion on November 30th of last year. As you already know, dear colleagues, the cause of jurors is very close to my heart. And that is why it was very important for me that it was tabled and adopted Bill S-206, which was designed to support jurors who need psychological support following trauma suffered during a criminal trial. I'd like to thank my colleague who was the sponsor of the bill and for having allowed me to step into her shoes. Jury duty is the cornerstone of our legal system, and thank you to your professionalism, your sensitivity, and your sense of duty. S-206 was adopted and will finally allow many jurors to regain the well-deserved inner peace they need. So together we recognize that it is essential that jurors be able to consult mental health specialists and disclose confidential information obtained in a trial without his or her being seen as committing a criminal offense. So, by fulfilling our main mission, which is to listen and to serve Canadians, and by being the voice of the most vulnerable. So today, we are once again being called upon to deal with the issue of juries. The purpose of Bill S-252 is to establish in law a National Jury Duty Appreciation Week. And that week would happen every year during the second week of May. Now, with this bill, Senator Moncion would like this week to raise awareness of juror service and to highlight their often very difficult work in our legal system. And again, we want to recognize what they do in our legal system, and we want to highlight their daily contributions to Canadian democracy, and too often their role is taken for granted. So I'd like to quote from the preamble of Bill S-252 to this very effect, and I quote, that the designation of a week dedicated to the appreciation of jury duty will make it possible to highlight the work of jurors and make citizens, organizations, the entire judicial system, as well as provincial and federal governments, aware of the issues related to the exercise of this civic duty. End of quote. Honorable senators, making Canadians aware of this civic duty is essential when every day many criminal trials are taking place across Canada in many courts, and as a result, more and more citizens are called upon to pause their lives in the service of justice. It's not the first time I tell you that the experience of being a juror during a criminal trial can be difficult and that it can leave deep psychological scars. Jurors are often exposed to disturbing evidence, and the men and women of the jurors obviously have to examine the evidence in criminal trials involving sometimes highly violent crimes against women and children, sordid murders in family dramas, violent sexual assaults, organized crime retribution, and so on. There's no training to adequately prepare these men and women to serve on a jury. And no one can really prepare for this kind of experience. It's only by chance that you might be called to perform jury duty, which is very demanding, and in a way, it can also make you a victim of the justice system. So Senator Moncion knows that of which she speaks, and she's explained that it is very important to have this week of appreciation as a way to make Canadians and all stakeholders aware of the situation. In her speech at second reading, Senator Motion cited the tireless and challenging work involved. So we have to support jurors. We have to make Canadians aware of the reality that jurors go through so that we can all partake in their experience. So I am convinced that you, as I am, that this bill has merit. It is a good way to make everyone involved in the legal system aware of what jurors go through and the fact that they need support once they've finished their work. In her speech at second reading, Senator Motion cited the tireless and challenging work of the President of the Canadian Jury Commission, Mr. McFarland, in advancing this cause. I'd like to quote from Senator Motion's speech on this subject, and I quote her. In 2014, McFarland served as a juror in a first-degree murder trial. He helped raise awareness of the need to strengthen support for jurors in this country. Based on his own experience, he identified gaps in support for jurors. He discovered that his experience was only the tip of the iceberg. Mark was diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder after the trial, and like many other former jurors, it was very hard for him to find support. In 2016, his advocacy helped prompt the Ontario government to launch a free counseling program for former jurors. In 2017, Mark brought these issues to the national stage. He brought the 12 angry letters to the attention of parliamentarians and government officials, and in these letters, 12 former jurors told of their pain and their struggle to find support, end of quote. Finally, it wasn't until this year, 7 years after the trial Marc Ferrand worked on as a juror, that a bill was finally passed to allow jurors to seek mental support if needed. So, to complete this important work and to improve support for former jurors who deserve recognition and for future jurors who will, in turn, serve the legal system, I unequivocally support the efforts of our colleague Senator Motion to create a National Jury Appreciation Week. She herself was a juror in a traumatizing trial, and she spoke about that here on S252. I would like to recognize her courage and her determination in reaching for her goal of giving jurors the appreciation they deserve when they carry out their tasks to support our legal system. So, witnessing traumatic events is not easy, but it is very important for jurors to actually engage in that work. It is a privilege for us to have a voice in this chamber, and especially on behalf of those who don't have a voice. So, Senators, I am convinced that you will also support this bill, and I hope that this bill is passed as quickly as possible with unanimous support. Thank you very much.